Hey team, Mike here at After 40 Fitness and after40fitness.ca. Gotta tell you something. My buddy Thomas Delauer, if you follow Thomas Delauer on YouTube, gotta tell you, I love his stuff. I really do. More often than not, he's on point. I've learned so much over the last decade. But every now and then, he just proves to me that, oh my God, Thomas is the king of strawman arguments. And you know something? His video this week was no different. It's one of those ones where I just shook my head the whole time and went, you're not making any sense. The information you're sharing does not point to the conclusion that you're drawing. So this one in particular, if you saw it, was an argument between whole foods and processed foods. Here's a quick little video clip of the image if you want to go try to find it. And the point of contention in the video that Thomas shared was that two foods of equal amount of calories had a different thermic effect. Therefore, that negated the calories in, calories out argument. Right? That if calories in versus calories out matter, then oh my goodness, and there's no way that the foods can have a different, I'm just going to do this. Let's just go ahead and look at some of the clips that he shared, and I'll walk with you through what I see as a lack of logic versus how to look at the information he presented, and you let me know at the end if you agree or disagree with me or with Thomas, right? Why don't we do that? By the way, if this is your first time to my channel or you haven't yet, please do hit that like button and do subscribe. Putting out 2 or 3 videos a week in the keto low-carb Atkins space. The best comments in videos like this one turn into videos. So please do add comments down below and hit me up with your issues, your concern, your questions. But on that note, let's have a look at this video that Thomas put out and rip it apart. Join me.
Here's another argument against calories in versus calories out, but it's really, really fascinating.
Oh, are you excited? I'm excited. Let's see what he has to say. Let's see what the concept of the premise here is.
Okay, this takes a look at whole food consumption versus processed food consumption and what it does in terms of your thermogenic response. Like, do certain foods actually burn more calories than other foods, even if they're of equal caloric value?
Okay, so I got to digress for a quick second and give you a bit of a background, some context about what Thomas is going to talk about next. There's this thing, you may have heard of it, called the thermic effect of food. Here's a good image of it, just so you can see it as we talk through it. You'll notice that this TEF, it's the amount of calories or the increase in our metabolic rate that is associated with us digesting that food or assimilating and absorbing those nutrients. Now, as you look down here, you'll see our 3 macros, right? You're familiar with, of course, proteins, carbs, and fats as our 3 macros. You'll notice the red area, right? This is the thermic effect of food, the amount of calories, or percentage in this case, of calories that are used just to digest and assimilate the calories. Notice fats, negligible, but a range. We'll talk about the ranges in a second. 0 to 3, carbs, 5 to 10, and protein. 20 to 30% of the calories from protein just go into denaturing the protein, breaking it down into its amino acids, and putting those into the bloodstream. Now, that's what we're talking about here, is the amount of calories it takes to get the food from in your mouth into your bloodstream. So this has been around for 100 years. This has been a long time known about. Thomas has done videos on this topic and how it's better to eat protein because of the thermic effect of food. Now, somehow, though, he's going to look at different kinds of carbs. And see that range, 5 to 10? This becomes really relevant in a minute. And say that this negates the calories in, calories out argument. That therefore we can't use calories in, calories out because a calorie isn't a calorie. And here's what I'm going to introduce you to our first straw man. See, talking about calories that go in the mouth and the calories that are lost via digestion, that's not what we're talking about when we talk about calories in, calories out. We talk about the calories that hit your bloodstream. Whatever hits your bloodstream is what matters. If you're in the keto or Atkins space, you may have heard this term net carbs. Okay, so people who follow the net carb philosophy don't count the carbs that go in their mouth because that includes not just fiber, but also sugar alcohols. Now, both fiber and sugar alcohols are not digested. They pass through our intestinal tract, unencumbered, right, unbroken down. They feed our flora in our gut biome, and then they pass through and they help us eliminate, if you will. That's the purpose behind fiber, right? It passes through us undigested. Therefore, it doesn't hit the bloodstream. So those like you and I, if you follow the net carb philosophy, you understand that what we eat doesn't always hit the bloodstream. Well, guess what you care about? You care about net. You care about the carbs that turn into glucose and impact your serum glucose levels. So somehow now Thomas has forgotten, or whoever gave him his script and said, read from the teleprompter, said, I want you to forget what you talked about and taught people before about the thermic effect of food. Forget about the fact that we only care about what hits our bloodstream. And I want you to negate now, come out on the side against calories in versus calories out using this thermogenic effect as a reason to negate it. So stupid, because what I just showed you here is, and we're going to get into this down in big time, is that these three macros, proteins, carbs, and fats, already have a different thermogenic effect. But at the end of the day, what hits your bloodstream, when it hits your bloodstream, a calorie is a calorie. My buddy Lane Norton, Dr. Lane Norton, a scientist, a research scientist, said this real quick. I'll just digress and I'll show you his clip.
Calories in, calories out, but keeping in mind, calories in and calories out are not static numbers. And people say things like, well, I tracked my calories and didn't lose fat. Well, you can have a budget and not save money. If you didn't lose fat, you weren't in a calorie deficit.
Yeah, Lane gets it. He understands. So just to recap them before we move on to Thomas's next clip, calories that hit your bloodstream are calories in. Calories that you burn, whether by your resting metabolic rate, just by existing, by breathing, perhaps it's your NEAT, your non-exercise activity, or it is activity, it is exercise, it is resistance training and HIIT, maybe it's running, playing with your kids. All those things put together are your energy out, your calories out. All right, I'm feeling good. I think we got a good handle on calories in, calories out. So let's have a look at this study that Thomas is about to use between whole food and processed food, and let's see how he uses it in his arsenal to dissuade you against calories in versus calories out. Let's have a look.
And what they wanted to figure out here was if people consumed one food or the other, did they have a stronger caloric response, a thermogenic response after consuming said food?
I know what you're thinking. You're already thinking, so what? So what if they did? Because as we already established, fat has less of a thermic effect than carbs, which has a quarter of the thermic effect of protein. So does it matter? But obviously where I'm going with is the difference between whole food and processed food is going to be there. It's going to be noticeable. It's going to be significant. Let's have a look and see how he applies it.
Okay, all the calories between the groups were completely equal. Okay, and the macronutrients, the protein, the fats, the carbohydrates were completely the same. Okay, so again, if you're thinking calories in versus calories out, these foods are created equal. They're the same calories, so they're going to elicit the same response.
Please tell me at this point you're already shaking your head. Please tell me you understand that just because foods have got the same caloric content does not mean they're the same food. All right, I can't believe you just said that. They're the same because they both have the same amount of calories. So what we've learned so far, you and I, is that if I have 100 calories of fat, 100 calories of carbs, and 100 calories of protein, and let's say that 3% is the number we're going to use for fat. 100 calories from fat, how many hit your bloodstream? You better just automatically have said 97. You lose 3 to digestion. Now let's use the number 10% for the sake of argument. 100 calories from carbs, and you lose 10% to digestion. How many hit your bloodstream? 90. And we'll use 25%, right in the middle between 20 and 30. 25%, let's say for a nice piece of ribeye, you have 100 calories of steak, and you lose 25% to digestion. How many hit your bloodstream? 75. Now, did any of you think that the fat and the carb and the protein, because we started with 100 calories of each, are all the same? Because Thomas, let me repeat it for you.
Okay, so again, if you're thinking calories in versus calories out, these foods are created equal. They're the same calories, so they're going to elicit the same response.
Loser. Sorry, I digress. That was beneath me. What the hell? I almost said the F word. What the hell? All right, what kind of nonsense is that? That because we start with something that's eucaloric or the same amount of calories, that all of a sudden fats, protein, and carbs are the same, right? So stupid, especially because we again, I'll say it one more time, we've already established that the thermic effect of different foods is different. Hello, TD. Okay, now let's see what the difference was, though. Are you curious? If you're like me, I watched this video on pins and needles because I really was curious what the difference in thermic effect was between whole food, which he showed us, which was whole grain bread with real cheese, versus white bread, processed white bread with processed sliced cheese. Let's have a look and see what the difference was.
The major difference between the two was the thermogenic response. The whole food sandwich burned 33 total calories, okay, to actually digest and break down the sandwich. Okay, that was close to 20%, 19.9% of its total energy value being burned, okay? Then the processed sandwich ended up only burning 17 calories, or 10.7% of its total caloric energy, its total value.
Now, I don't mind telling you, looking that information up in the study that Thomas uses was fascinating. Right? So a whole grain sandwich, a combo with cheese, 20%. Right? Now remember, in the graph I showed you in the image, it said somewhere between 5 and 10%. As much as, now that was a combination, right, of whole grain with fiber with cheese. All right, 20% of calories. I mean, I was blown away. That's awesome. Compared to 10%, which is still at the top of the range in the image. Still 10%, almost 11, 10.7% of calories were burned in digestion for the crappy food, for the processed food. So what do we learn from that? Not a damn thing. Obviously better to eat whole food. Obviously you're going to burn more, not burn more calories. You're going to have less calories reach your bloodstream, where a calorie is a calorie, where calories in versus calories out begins to matter once you're past digestion. But isn't that cool? If you eat well, so for those of you who are strict Atkins, strict keto, strict low carb, how much better is that? That's good information. That means we have less calories actually hitting our bloodstream. All right, so profound. I really enjoyed that. Now, what Thomas will show now is how much that impacts you on a daily and therefore on a yearly basis. This is information I enjoyed. Watch this.
You factor this in over the course of the day with all your food. If all your food's processed, you are easily looking at 100 to 200 extra calories per day that you're not burning.
Hey, that's good to know. 100, maybe even 200 calorie difference over the course of the day if you eat well versus predominantly processed. Now, I think that means, right, if you read that correctly, that means your entire day has to be good food versus processed, not a blend. And if you're like me, a little bit more flexible in your keto or your Atkins, then you do occasionally have something processed, maybe an Atkins bar, or I'll have something when I'm out, I'll have a lettuce-wrapped burger at A&W, which I know isn't 100% great, but that's not our fare. Our fare is whole food with a little bit of processed food layered on top. That's my MO. Maybe it's like yours. But make no mistake, here's where I got to draw your attention to something. If this argument holds true, and you now say to your friends and your colleagues and in social media, I only eat whole food so I can save that or burn or not have that extra 100 or 200 calories reach my bloodstream because of the difference between 10 and 20% of the thermic effect of food, well, then you should only eat protein. Because protein has the highest thermic effect, as high as 30%. Therefore, you should never eat fats. Oh my God, think about that for a second. Be careful down this rabbit hole. Because if this makes sense to you and you now rail against people who eat processed food, then in principle you should never eat fat. Because fat only has a 3% thermic effect. You're throwing away between 25 and 27%, shall we say, of the thermic effect of food by not eating 100% of your day protein. Well, obviously you're not going to do that. So let's take this with a grain of salt. It triggers me. I don't mind telling you. So let me show you what Thomas has to do, the game he has to try to play with your psychology when you use a straw man argument and kind of sort of get called on it or have to try to justify it or decide to justify it, because he did this on his own. Watch this.
Okay, so the same people that are going to make that argument and say that it's high glycemic, so that's not apples to apples. Those are the same people that are making the argument that a calorie is a calorie. So you just completely just kick yourself because now you're saying that it's not equal. But in the same conversation, you're telling me that they are equal.
Yeah, I'm confused. Okay, so I think if I understand correctly, what he's saying is you can't turn around and say that the foods aren't the same, that they're not apples to apples, and then turn around and say a calorie is a calorie. And I think you and I have been able to easily tease those things apart. That when you ingest food sources are definitely different. Protein and fat and carbs are definitely different. They have different calories per gram and different thermic effect of food. Right? So I think that you and I have been able to take those little nuggets of information and turn them into knowledge that TD's having a hard time doing. But then, once through digestion, however many calories, let's say from that 100, remember from 197 calories from fat made it to the bloodstream, about 90 from carbs, calories made it to the bloodstream, and about 75 from protein made it to the bloodstream. At that point, those calories now are units of heat. They're calories at that point. Now we can say they're the same. Now an apple is an apple. Oh, by the way, Dr. Lane Norton, one of my heroes, he covered this. Let's have a look real quick and let him finish off.
I'm not saying all calories are the same, even though they really are, because calories are a unit of heat. All sources of calories are not the same. Protein and fiber have a greater impact on thermogenesis, which is why it makes sense to eat a high protein, high fiber diet.
Wow, there you have it. I mean, you don't want to do one day. Wouldn't it be cool to do I'm going to do a video of just Lane and TD going back and forth, and I'm going to find a little montage. That'd be so much fun. Maybe I'll do that at some point. But anyway, I hope you got some good information out of this video. I've beaten this one to death. I truly believe in calories in, calories out. Now, for those of you who watch this video and say, Mike, you didn't talk about hormones at all, I do agree that hormones play a role. Calories in, calories out is absolutely a measurement or the result of our endocrine systems. I truly believe that. So when you want to talk about insulin and glucagon and cortisol, I truly believe, of course, they matter. They're like the fulcrum in between calories in, calories out on either side. But our metabolism and our hormonal balance obviously dictates our resting metabolic rate, our basal metabolic rate, our calories burned just to survive. So I'm on board with that. Don't think for a second that I'm negating the value. I just wanted, this topic was of interest to me because somehow the thermic effect of food was used by TD to totally, criticize and downplay calories in versus calories out. I truly believe, just like Lane said, you must be in a caloric deficit to lose weight. Plain and simple. Guys, if you have any arguments with that, if you agree, expressly agree or disagree, please do put a comment down below. Give me something to work with. I always, as you know, turn the best comments into videos just like this one. And again, if you haven't yet, please do hit the like button. I would appreciate that. That helps me. As well as subscribe. On that note, I'll see you in the next one.